The Highlander is a comfortable, well-built three-row SUV that's about as entertaining as kayaking in a retention pond while sober. It's usually not cheap either, but today I'm going to drive the base model to see if you really need to spend more. Of course, you're not buying one of these to have a fun driving experience. If you want something like this that's more engaging, I'm going to strongly advise the Mazda CX-90. The Highlander is more down-to-earth like myself. It's usually about meeting your needs, not really exceeding them. For 2023, we get a new turbo engine, along with some fresh tech that I will talk about here shortly. Standard, you're gonna have LED projector headlights, LED taillights, alloy wheels, and mostly body-colored panels. Toyota cut corners for tall people, as I'll have to look at the unpainted shark fin antenna. Thankfully, I do have proximity unlock and lock as standard. While you don't have a power rear tailgate, you could see it as one less complication, as the only things you're gonna have to worry about are your buys and tries. The Highlander is among the more petite, family-oriented three-row SUVs, and it shows on the inside in both good and bad ways. So your visibility outward in your driving position keep this thing from feeling intimidating. Another pro to this, even under $40,000, is that there's a good sense of quality. They don't cheap out entirely with the materials. You still have soft touch on the mid-dash and where your outboard knees will rest, though it is mostly dark plastics. You'll have a urethane wheel.
And the screens aren't showboaty, but I think the solid construction of the interior is more important in this application. The standard 6-speaker sound system provides adequate power for the size of this cabin, but the actual quality is as forgettable as your Xbox Live password.
And the tech here is acceptable. So for 2023, we get Toyota's new infotainment system. Here on the base model, that is an 8-inch screen. It does have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The resolution, the response time, they're all right, and I like how stripped down and simple it is. Though it is lacking a tune dial, thankfully we do have full physical HVAC controls that have a matte finish to them, so they don't get smudged, dusty, and scratched, and they're very easy to use. This also has tri-zone climate control as standard. Also new is a larger info-dense multi-function display paired up with your analog gauges, and overall it is a pretty no-nonsense interior. There's not a bunch of capacitive controls. Everything that you're really going to touch has a matte finish to it, and the areas that you would want soft, like where your elbows rest, are soft.
And if you want an easygoing buying experience, let me recommend Royal South Toyota in Bloomington, Indiana, the friendly, community-focused store that's let me test drive various Highlanders in the past. Check them out and tell them thanks for me.
On the base trim, you will have cloth upholstery with a power driver's seat that is 8-way adjustable, but that does not include lumbar. I found these to be soft and supportive. It seems well contoured to my body type. I'm a fairly slender 6'3", and my thigh support is okay. Now, even though this is not a cavernous cabin, they did have families in mind with things like a standard dad mirror, plenty of storage cubbies up front, though I do wish the mid-dash ones were grippy. The center console is giant, and moving into the second row, if my driver alter ego is in a comfortable yet not excessive position, I still have great legroom, good headroom, with rear vents located near my face. The seats themselves are supportive. Moving into the third row, it's probably the tightest in the class. However, you can reallocate space among the 3 rows to make this fit adults in almost every place. But the middle seat back there is reserved for children that are still in the bird of prey danger zone.
The cargo space with all rows in place is tiny.
It may be behind most competitors, but when you consider the footprint, I would still label this as well packaged. Where I think the Highlander is at its best is on the road. So under the hood is that new 2.4-liter turbocharged engine. Outside of just a little bit of turbo lag there at low RPMs, this has good response and great torque. 310 pound-feet of it, though it is down on power compared to the old V6. But in most real-world situations, this power band is more usable. 0 to 60 though, it's just not going to be all that impressive. I got 7.4 seconds last year with an all-wheel drive model. Passing power is more its forte, and there's no hybrid for the base spec. While the 8-speed automatic definitely tries to get in the highest gear possible at all times, with this sort of engine, that's not a problem, and it still is ready to downshift when you need it to, and there's no sort of gear hunting to report either. While the forced induction motor will need to prove its reliability, it is well suited for this application. Sounds like every rental Camry you've ever gotten from the airport, though that engine note is muffled, and so is road noise. Wind noise is perceivable, but still toned down.
All turbo Highlanders tow 5,000 pounds, and it gets good gas mileage for the class.
Now this model is front-wheel drive. If that doesn't suit your lifestyle, you can get all-wheel drive, but it is just Toyota's most basic system. It doesn't have the torque vectoring rear differential like the top spec Highlanders. It does include a trail mode, which will use the brakes to shuffle power side to side. That's okay, but this system is usually not very good at sending enough torque to the rear to get you over any big obstacles. And while that won't mean anything for most people, if you want to go out to more remote areas, I would probably recommend something like a base Pilot or an entry-level Ascent if you're trying to keep your budget down. If all you plan on drudging this through is snow, you'll be good. Just don't do anything too stupid. Here on a bad road, it's hard to perceive small imperfections, and it's smooth over your regular breaks in the pavement. Over the worst stuff, it still shields your spine quite well. Even the most ignored stretch of pavement I could find, it doesn't really make this thing sweat. Going around corners, this is soft. You know, I can hit imperfections mid-corner and it doesn't feel jittery or too unstable, but there's definitely some body roll. It's not as confident as a Mazda CX-90 or even a Subaru Ascent. The steering is also light, it's numb, yet fairly predictable. So since the Highlander isn't a very big car to begin with, it's pretty easy to throw it through a windy road.
It may not handle in a way that impresses journalists with goofy cars, but its docile personality should do well with the target audience.
On top of its soft yet car-like handling, I think the visibility makes it feel very approachable. You have a windshield that's fairly close to you, reasonably sized windows, not a huge blind spot. You also have a full suite of active safety tech standard minus blind spot monitoring. The backup camera, though, could definitely use some work. In the event that you were to run into something at a bit of a higher speed, this does perform pretty well in crash tests. Now, when it comes to reliability, this is a pretty new engine for Toyota. Though I will say, it's designed for the Tacoma, and it's more simple than the 3.4-liter twin-turbo engine that you see in the Tundra. So time's going to have to tell, but I feel confident that Toyota was really going for longevity with this unit. And this generation as a whole has been pretty reliable. I think the biggest complaints were related to the fuel system and brakes. Usually base Toyota trims are no-frills transportation, but in the case of the Highlander, it is surprisingly nice. What's also a little surprising to me is how successful this thing is. Not because I think it doesn't deserve it, but because family-oriented vehicles in this sort of class largely shoot to be the most practical, because that's what people want. Even Toyota acknowledges this, and that's why they're giving us the Grand Highlander, because the biggest complaint with this thing is typically the third row usability. But that spatial limitation also seems to be the standard Highlander's biggest niche. Its combination of approachability, reliability, comfort, and value is highly sought after. If you want a 3-row SUV without a bloated size or price, the base Highlander is an excellent choice.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like to help me break my way into the YouTube algorithm. If you want more fun, detailed car content without fluff, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. Check out my Patreon for an additional podcast, and I'll catch you in the next one.